All right. Today we are going to be doing a read aloud of the Spread of Islam chapter. So this is going to be, this is the cover art. Time limit, time constraints are about 630 to 1600. So it goes pretty into the present, getting close. So to start off, early expansion. It's page 80 we are starting on. Page 80. All right, here we go. If you were there, you are a farmer living in a village on the coast of India. For centuries, your people have raised cotton and spun its fibers into a soft fabric. One day, a ship arrives in the harbor, bringing traders from far away. They bring interesting goods you have never seen before. They also bring new ideas. What ideas might you learn from these traders? So building background, you may know that for years, traders traveled through Arabia to markets far away. We talked about this with trade. Along the way, they picked up new goods and ideas, and they introduced these to the people they met. Some of these new ideas the traders spread were Islamic ideas, some religion. Muslim armies conquer many lands. After Muhammad's death, many of the Muslim leaders chose Abu Bakr, one of Muhammad's first converts, to be the next leader of Islam. He was the first caliph, a title that Muslims use for the highest leader of Islam. In Arabic, the word caliph means successor. As Muhammad's successors, the caliphs had to follow the prophet's example. This meant ruling according to the Quran. Unlike Muhammad, however, early caliphs were not religious leaders. Though not a religious leader, Abu Bakr was a political and military leader. Under his rule, the Muslims began a series of wars in which they conquered many lands outside of Arabia. So you can see the spread of Islam. Muhammad dies. Arabs take Damascus. They start to defeat more countries around them. They take Jerusalem. They're really expanding really fast. So they're winning a lot of these battles. Beginnings of an empire. Abu Bakr directed a series of battles against Arab tribes who did not follow Muhammad's teachings. By his death in 634, he made Arabia into a unified Muslim state. That is 2 years. That's pretty incredible. With Arabia united, Muslim leaders turned their attention elsewhere. Their armies, strong after their battles with Arabia, won many stunning victories. They defeated the Persian and Byzantine empires, which were weak from years of fighting. When the Muslims conquered lands, they made treaties with any non-Muslims there. These treaties listed rules that conquered people, often Jews and Christians, had to follow. For example, some non-Muslims could not build places of worship in Muslim cities or dress like Muslims. In return, the Muslims would not attack them. One such treaty was the Pact of Umar, named after the second caliph. It was written about 637 after Muslims conquered Syria. During this period, differences between groups of Muslims solidified into what became the Shia-Sunni split. One prominent incident was the killing of Hussein, the grandson of Muhammad and carrier of the hopes of the Shia Muslim branch. All right, a couple things to take apart. First of all is the whole not killing people that are a different religion of you when you conquer them. This is a very new thing. Typically back then, if you were conquered and you were not similar to the people who conquered you, didn't end well for you. But for a lot of people in this area, it did end well for them. So good job. Second part is the Shia-Sunni split. This is kind of, if I had to compare it to Christianity, it'd be like Catholic and, you guys would call it Catholic and Christian, but it's really Catholic and Protestant, but it's still Islam. They just have this original divide over who they thought should be the leader, who they thought should be the first caliph and the fourth caliph, and like that's it. And then there became some religious differences based off that, and they arbitrarily started hating each other. And I'm going to get some comments on that, but whatever. All right, growth of the empire. Many early caliphs came from the Umayyad family. There's going to be a lot of words in here. They're going to be really hard to pronounce for y'all. So this one is Umayyad. The Umayyads moved their capital from Medina to Damascus and continued to expand the empire. They took over lands in Central Asia and in northern India. The Umayyads also gained control of trade in the in the Eastern Mediterranean and conquered part of North Africa. So yeah, take a look at this map. It's huge. So this is how much land, Islamic land, was when they had when Muhammad died. The orange is the first caliphs, so 30 years after Muhammad died, and then the yellow is the Umayyad dynasty. So like 100 years after Muhammad died, they had made it stretch across 3 continents, which is pretty crazy. It's even in Spain. Okay. And then trade in the Muslim world, you can see how a lot of trade went through the Middle East and how it became really important for the spread of Islam, which we're going to learn about now. In the late 600s, wait, did I skip a part? No, I did skip a part, my fault. I didn't skip a part. Umayyads, war. In the late 600s, battles with the Berbers slowed the growth of Muslim rule in North Africa. The Berbers are the native people of North Africa. After years of fighting, many Berbers converted to Islam. Following their conversion, they joined the Arabs in their efforts to spread Islam. This is why there's a lot of Muslim countries in Africa, especially North Africa today. Next, the Muslims tried to expand their empire into Europe. A combined Arab and Berber army invaded Spain in 711 and quickly conquered it. The army moved on into what is now France, but it was stopped by a Christian army near the city of Tours. Despite this defeat, Muslims called Moors, continued to rule parts of Spain for the next 700 years. So Spain was a Muslim. So Spain, it was a Muslim country for 700 years. There's a lot of Arabic within Spanish. Actually, it's kind of cool. But if you know anyone that ever goes to Spain, you see a lot of the Muslim influence there. Cool. In continuing the expansion, a new dynasty, the Abbasids, came to power in 750. The Abbasids reorganized the government to make it easier to rule such a large region. Cool. So yeah, that's kind of it. Then this group we're going to learn a lot about this group later. Trade helps Islam spread. Islam gradually spread through areas the Muslims conquered. At the same time, trade helped spread Islam into other areas as well. Arabia's crossroads location gave Muslim merchants easy access to South Asia, Europe, and Africa. Merchants in the spread of Islam. Along with their trade goods, Arab merchants took Islamic beliefs to new lands. For example, merchants introduced Islam into India. Although many Indian kingdoms remained Hindu, coastal trading cities soon had large Muslim communities. In Africa, societies had both African and Muslim customs. For example, Arabic influenced local African languages. Also, many African leaders converted to Islam. So you can see that wherever trade goes, Islam goes. Between 1200 and 1600, Muslim traders carried Islam as far east as what are now Malaysia, that's a typo, as what are now known as Malaysia and Indonesia. Even today, Islam is a major influence on life there. Yeah, so it's the second biggest religion in the world today. Products and inventions. In addition to helping spread Islam, trade brought new products to Muslim lands and made many people rich. First, new products and inventions created by other people made their way to the Muslim world. For example, Arabs learned from the Chinese how to make paper and use gunpowder. New crops such as cotton, rice, and oranges arrived from India, China, and Southeast Asia. Second, traders made money on trade between regions. Cool. So they work a lot with other parts of the world. In addition to trade with Asia, African trade was important to Muslim merchants. Many merchants set up businesses next to African market towns. They wanted African products such as ivory, cloves, and slaves. In return, they offered the fine white pottery called porcelain from China, cloth goods from India, and iron from Southwest Asia and Europe. Arab traders even traveled south across the Sahara, the world's largest desert, to get gold. In exchange, they brought the African salt, which was scarce south of the desert. We'll learn about that a lot more when we get to West Africa. Cool. So you can see that their role as world traders and middlemen of world trade made them wanted across different regions, which means that trading cities are going to be very hospitable to Muslim merchants, which means they're going to set up mosques, which means their religion's going to grow. So you kind of can see that. You can see that line. A mix of cultures. As Islam spread through trade, warfare, and treaties, Arabs came in contact with people who had different beliefs and lifestyles than they did. Muslims generally practiced religious tolerance or acceptance with regard to people they conquered. In other words, the Muslims did not ban all religions other than Islam in their lands. Jews and Christians in particular kept many of their rights, and since they shared some beliefs with Muslims. This goes back to the idea of people of the book. Their religions are similar. So they were treated pretty well under Muslim empires. Although Jews and Christians were allowed to practice their own religions, they had to pay a special tax. They also had to follow the rules of the treaties governing conquered peoples. Many people conquered by the Arabs converted to Islam. Along with Islamic beliefs, these people often adopted other parts of Arabic culture. For example, many people started speaking Arabic. The Arabs also adopted some of the customs of the people they conquered. For example, they copied a Persian form of bureaucracy in the government. As Islam spread, language and religion helped unify the many groups that became part of the Islamic world. Cultural blending changed Islam from mostly Arab religion into a religion of many different cultures. Yeah, so this happens with any religion. It changes depending on what region of the world you go into because all your cultures blend together. Happened in Mexico, happened in America, happened throughout Europe, happened throughout Asia with Buddhism, happened in India, happens in Africa, and it happens in the Middle East as well. Cool. Growth of cities. The growing cities of the Muslim world reflected this blending of cultures. Trade had brought people, products, and ideas together. It had also created wealth, which supported great cultural development in cities such as Baghdad, in what is now Iraq, and Cordoba in Spain. Baghdad. So here's some dope pictures of these cities now. Baghdad. Baghdad became the capital of the Islamic Empire in 762. Located near both land and water routes, it was a major trading center. In addition to trade, farming contributed to a strong economy. Dates and grains grew well in fertile soil. Trade and farming made Baghdad one of the world's richest cities in the late 700s and early 800s. The center of Baghdad was known as the Round City because 3 round walls surrounded it. What? Whatever. Within the walls was the Caliph's place, which took up 1/3 of the city. Outside of the walls were houses and souks for the city's huge population. This is Ba Sing Se. This is what Ba Sing Se and Avatar: The Last Airbender is based off of, where the inner wall, the outer wall, and you have different levels of importance. That's super cool. Okay. I wish I showed a picture of it. Caliphs at Baghdad supported science and the arts. For example, they built a hospital and an observatory. They also built a library that was used as a university and housed Arabic translations of many ancient Greek works. Because Baghdad was a center of culture and learning, many artists and writers went there. Artists decorated the city's public buildings, while writers wrote literature that remains popular today. So this is the reason why we have they basically preserved all the works of Rome and Greece for about 1,000 years while Europe was on fire and being stupid. Okay, Cordoba. Cordoba too became a great Muslim city. In 756, Muslims chose to be the capital of what is now Spain. Like Baghdad, Cordoba had a strong economy based on agriculture and trade. Cordoba exported textiles and jewelry, which were valued throughout Europe. By the early 900s, Cordoba was the largest and most advanced city in Europe. It had mansions and mosques, busy markets and shops, and aqueducts. It also had public water and lighting systems. Cool. So most advanced city in Europe is a Muslim city for most of its existence. Cordoba was a great center of learning. Men and women from across the Muslim world and Europe came to study at the university there. They studied Greek and Roman scientific writings and translated them into Arabic. In addition, they studied writings produced in the Muslim world and translated them from Arabic to Latin. As a result, Arabic writings on such subjects as mathematics, medicine, astronomy, geography, and history could be studied throughout Europe. Yeah, so 2 hugely important cities. Cordoba was also the center of Jewish culture. Many Jews held key jobs in the government. Jewish poets, philosophers, and scientists make great contributions to Cordoba's cultural growth. When we get to this in second semester with the Inquisition, we're going to talk a lot about Spanish Jews. All right. Summary. Through wars and treaties, Muslim territory grew tremendously, and Islam spread gradually throughout this territory. In the next section, you'll learn about the three empires that grew up and continued to work to spread Islam. Cool. So that is this chapter summary. Pause if you need to. Go back if you need to. And we're going to start this one. But man, there's a lot of talking. All right, section 2, Muslim empires. If you were there, you are one of several advisors to the leader of a great empire. His armies have conquered many lands and peoples, but the ruler wants to be known for something other than his military conquests. He wants to be remembered as a wise ruler who united the empire. How can he do this? Some of his advisors tell him to rule strictly. Others urge him to be tolerant of the different peoples in the empire. Now it's your turn. What advice would you give to the ruler? Kill everyone. All right. As Islam spread, leaders struggled to build strong empires. Some were tolerant of those they conquered. Others wanted more control. The policies of leaders affected life in the Ottoman, Safavid, and Mughal empires. So today, these three empires take over, around the 1100s, maybe a little later in some cases. But these are the three parts of Islam throughout the world today. Ottoman is, Arabia and Turkey. Safavid is Iran, and probably a little bit of Iraq and Pakistan. And then the Mughal Empire is Pakistan and India, because India has a very large Muslim population. Okay, the Ottoman Empire. Centuries after the early Arab Muslim conquests, Muslims ruled several powerful empires containing various peoples. Rulers and military leaders in Persian empires spoke Persian. Turkish leaders spoke Turkish, while Arabic continued as a language of religion and scholarship. One of these empires was the Ottoman Empire, which controlled much of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Built on conquest, the Ottoman Empire was a political and cultural force. So we are moving to the mid-1200s. Stuff we've learned about during this time frame is the Crusades. So the Crusades happen during the Ottoman Empire. Something just to think about. In the mid-1200s, Muslim Turkish warriors known as Ottomans began to take land from the Christian Byzantine Empire. As the map shows, they eventually ruled lands from Eastern Europe to North Africa and Arabia. The key to the empire's expansion was the Ottoman army. The Ottomans trained Christian boys from conquered towns to be soldiers. These slave soldiers, called janissaries, if you play Assassin's Creed, you know what this is, converted to Islam and became fierce fighters. Besides these slave troops, the Ottomans were aided by new gunpowder weapons, especially cannons. So we're going to get to cannons and guns. Quick note on janissaries. Here's how it worked. The Ottoman Empire, Ottoman forces, Ottoman police, whatever it was, would go to Southeast Europe. I guess what's today like not Yugoslavia, like Bosnia and Serbia and like Greece. And they'd either they kidnap probably aged 7 through 12, 7 through 10-year-old, Christian boys, and turn them into, basically beef them up, convert them to Islam, and then those would be their key soldiers that they would use. Sometimes if you were a family and you were poor and you were, having trouble making ends meet, you might sell your kid into the janissaries. You're like, all right, well, we got 7 of them and we can always make more. So, Roger, you're going with them. But this was actually something that a lot of families did in interest of the child, because life as a janissary was safer. You had the opportunity of education. You learned how to read and write. You got pretty strong, pretty big. You had opportunity for a political career afterwards, someone has a lot of power. Sometimes parents would sell their kids into the janissaries because they knew it would give them a better life. So it's interesting to think about. Would your parents sell you? Ask them. Anyway, that joke doesn't work well over recording. In 1453, Ottomans led by Mehmed II. There's going to be a lot of words in here that are tough. In 1453, Ottomans led by Mehmed II used huge cannons to conquer Constantinople. With the city's capture, Mehmed defeated the Byzantine Empire. He became known as the Conqueror. Mehmed made Constantinople, which the Ottomans called Istanbul to Constantinople, now it's Istanbul, his new capital. He also turned the Byzantines' great church, Hagia Sophia, into a mosque. A later sultan, or Ottoman ruler, continued Mehmed's conquests. He expanded the empire to the east through the rest of Anatolia, another name for Asia Minor. Okay, this is just Turkey. His armies also conquered Syria and Egypt. Soon after, the holy cities of Mecca and Medina accepted Ottoman rule as well. These triumphs made the Ottoman Empire a major world power. So you can see that Ottomans went from just like Constantinople and Southeast Europe and Turkey and Syria and Egypt, and then they kind of expanded out from there, getting the areas around them. So pretty powerful group for about 400 years. They actually make it all the way to World War I. So they're around for looks probably like 500, 600 years in total. So Ottoman Empire, pretty big deal. Okay. The Ottoman Empire reached its height under Suleiman I, aka Suleiman the Magnificent. During Suleiman's rule from 1520 to 1566, the Ottomans took control of the Eastern Mediterranean and pushed it far into Europe, areas that they would control until the early 1900s. So getting closer to the present. So they pushed it up to here. Also during Suleiman's rule, the Ottoman Empire reached its cultural peak. Muslim poets wrote beautiful works, and architects turned to Istanbul from a Byzantine city into a Muslim one. Ottoman government and society. The sultans issued laws and made all major decisions in the empire. Most Ottoman law was based on Sharia, or Islamic law, but sultans also made laws of their own. Ottoman society was divided into two classes: judges and other people who advised the sultan on legal and military matters were part of the ruling class. Okay, I did not read that well. Judges and other people who advised the sultan on legal and military matters were part of the ruling class. Members of the ruling class had to be loyal to the sultan, practice Islam, and understand Ottoman customs. People who didn't fit these requirements made up the other class. Many of them were Christians or Jews from lands that Ottomans had conquered. Christians and Jews formed religious communities, or millets, within the empire. Each millet had its own leaders and religious laws. Okay. Ottoman society limited the freedom that women enjoyed, especially women in the ruling class. These women usually had to live apart from men in an area of a household called a harem. By separating women from men, harems kept women out of public life. However, wealthy women could still own property or business. Some women used their money to build schools, mosques, and hospitals. Some fun fact about Ottoman emperor or Ottoman sultans. Traditionally, like Suleiman the Magnificent or whatever, had like 12 or 13 or 14 kids. Now, that means there's a lot of competition between who's going to be the next sultan. So what happened a lot of the time is the brothers and the siblings would kill each other to be the next sultan. Like if you're the oldest brother, watch your back because they're going to put hits on you so your younger brothers can fight for the sultan spot. So fratricide, which is the practice of killing your siblings, was actually like a very common thing. But the good part of this, and there's a good part, is traditionally those that succeeded at killing their siblings to get the next so they could be the next sultan were also the best rulers because they were the most ruthless, maybe not the most ruthless, but because they were willing to do things like that. And they're very ambitious. They stopped doing this around the 1600s, I want to say, or 1700s, and the quality of rulers that they had afterwards declined quite a bit. All right. So Ottoman Empire, Turkey, what's more known conventionally as the Middle East, Israel, Southeast Asia, a little bit different. But Turkey is the main thing to think about. All right, the Safavid Empire. This is going to be in what was then known as Persia, what's now known as Iran. As the Ottoman Empire reached its height, a group of Persian Muslims known as the Safavids was gaining power to the east. Before long, the Safavids came into conflict with the Ottomans and other Muslims. The conflict came from an old disagreement among Muslims about who should be caliph. In the mid-600s, Islam split into two groups. The two groups were the Shia and the Sunni. Okay, now it gets more into it. The Shia were Muslims who thought that only members of Muhammad's family should become caliphs. On the other hand, the Sunni didn't think caliphs had to be related to Muhammad as long as they were good Muslims and strong leaders. Over time, religious differences developed between the two groups as well. Yeah, so like the initial conflict is really small. It's like who should be the first caliph, and that was it. Yeah, and so the guy that the Shia wanted to be the first caliph ended up becoming the fourth one anyway. So the whole thing kind of happened for a dumb reason, but now there's like a decent amount of religious differences between the two groups. And I'm gonna close this a little bit. That's better. Growth of the empire. Whatever. Growth of the empire. The Safavid Empire began in 1501 when the Safavid leader Ismail conquered Persia. He took the ancient Persian title of Shah, or king. As Shah, Ismail made Shi'ism, the beliefs of the Shia, the official religion of the empire. This act worried Ismail's advisors because most people in the empire were Sunnis. But Ismail said, "I am committed to this action. God and the immaculate imams are with me, and I fear no one by God's help. If the people utter one word of protest, I will draw the sword and leave not one of them alive." Dang, that's a pretty strong conviction. Ismail dreamed of conquering other Muslim territories and converting all Muslims to Shi'ism. He battled the Uzbeks in the north, but he suffered a crushing defeat by the Ottomans, who were Sunni. Ismail died in 1524, and the next leaders struggled to keep the empire together. So today, Saudi Arabia and Iran do not like each other. They hate each other. One of the reasons goes back to this, because Iran is mostly Shia and Saudi Arabia is mostly Sunni, and you add in some other stuff. In 1588, the greatest Safavid leader, Abbas, became Shah. He strengthened the military and gave his soldiers modern gunpowder weapons. Copying the Ottomans, Abbas trained foreign slave boys to be soldiers. Under Abbas's rule, and the Safavids defeated the Uzbeks and took back land that they had lost to the Ottomans. Abbas also made great contributions to the Safavid culture and economy. So this is where the Safavid Empire is. It is in Persia. It's a little bit farther east of traditionally what's known as the Middle East. It's along the Persian Gulf, and then you start to see where it's going to start going to Afghanistan, and yeah, we'll get into that. Takes up Iraq and that kind of thing. Armenia, all that. Okay. Oh, I missed a whole section. Culture and economy. The Safavids blended Persian and Muslim traditions. They built beautiful mosques in their capital, Esfahan. People admire the colorful tiles and large dome of the Shah's mosque, built for Abbas. Esfahan was considered one of the world's most magnificent cities in the 1600s. Safavid culture played a role in the empire's economy because Abbas encouraged the manufacturing of traditional products. Hand-woven carpets became a major export. Other textiles, such as silk and velvet, were made in large workshops and sold to other peoples. In addition, the Safavids were admired for their skills in making ceramics and metal goods, especially goods made from steel. Merchants came from as far away as Europe to trade for these goods. Such trade brought wealth to the Safavid Empire and helped establish it as a major Islamic civilization. It lasted until the mid-1700s. So huge trading empire. Okay. The Mughal Empire. So we have Turkey and traditional Middle East. We have the Persian area. So this is the Safavids. Now we're going to have the Mughals over in India. The Mughal Empire. East of the Safavid Empire in India lay the Mughal Empire. Like the Ottomans, the Mughals united a large and diverse empire. They left a cultural heritage known for poetry and architecture. Growth. The Mughals were Turkish Muslims from Central Asia. The founder of the Mughal Empire was called Babur, or Tiger. It's a cool name. I'm going to name my kid Babur. He tried for years to make an empire in Central Asia. When he didn't succeed there, he decided to build an empire in northern India instead? There, Babur established the Mughal Empire in 1526. This dude, this man's, just said, yeah, I couldn't get it done in Ottoman land. I couldn't overthrow an empire in Ottoman land. So I'm just going to go to India and do it instead. What a man. The empire grew in the mid-1500s under an emperor named Akbar. He conquered many new lands and worked to make the Mughal government stronger. He also began a tolerant religious policy. Akbar believed that no single religion, including Islam, had all the answers. He got rid of the tax on non-Muslims and invited Hindus to be part of the Mughal government. Akbar's tolerant policies helped unify the empire. What a boss! This dude's like, try to make an empire in Ottoman territory. Nah, didn't work. Let me move to India and do it, and I'm gonna make it the most tolerant empire in history. What a G. What a G6. So now you can see it's built in India, starts in northern India, and then starts to spread out, and then starts to really get to the heart of India afterwards. There's a very big Muslim population in India and neighboring Pakistan. And they actually them and Hindus actually have a really big rivalry right now. I used to say this is where I thought World War III was going to start, but that's probably not true anymore. In the 1600s, Mughal emperors expanded the empire to control almost all of India. Look at the map to see how it grew. We just did that. This period of expansion was not a peaceful time. In the late 1600s, a new emperor changed the tolerant religious policies Akbar had established. The new emperor ordered people to obey strict religious laws and destroyed Hindu temples throughout India. He also persecuted non-Muslims and made them pay a special tax. One persecuted group was the Sikhs, a religious group that had formed from Hinduism after its leaders rejected some of the Hindu beliefs. When people gathered to protest, he sent war elephants to crush them. Jeez. As a result of his harsh policies, violent revolts occurred in much of the empire in the late 1600s. The Mughal Empire soon fell apart. Hey, so you know all that good stuff that the first dude did? This second dude undid all of that. Wow. RIP. F in chat for the Mughal Empire. All right, cultural advancements. A conflict of cultures led to an end of the Mughal Empire. For much of the empire's history, however, Muslims and Hindus lived together peacefully. Persians and Indians lived and worked in the same communities. As a result, elements of their cultures blended together, like everywhere else in the world. The result was a culture unique to the Mughal Empire. For example, during Akbar's rule, the Persian language and Persian clothing styles were popular. At the same time, however, Akbar encouraged people to write in Indian languages such as Hindi and Urdu. Also, many of the buildings constructed blended Persian, Islamic, and Hindu styles. So a lot of cultural blending. The Mughal Empire is known for its monumental architecture, particularly the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal is a dazzling tomb built between 1631 and 1647 by Akbar's grandson Shah Jahan for his wife. Wow, the Taj Mahal, one of the coolest things in the world, was built for this dude to put his wife in when she died. Respect. Akbar's grandson, he brought workers and materials from all over India and Central Asia to build the Taj Mahal. The buildings of the palace include a main gateway and a mosque. Gardens with pathways and fountains add beauty to the palace grounds. Many of the monuments the Mughals built have become symbols of India today. Cool, so this is the Taj Mahal. You've probably seen like pictures of it in cartoons or whatever. But yeah, pretty symbolic of India. Cool. So summary, the Ottomans, Safavids, and Mughals built great empires and continued the spread of Islam. In section 3, you will learn about some of the other achievements of the Islamic world. All right, well, that's it for me, and good luck. Have fun.